All right, good morning, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started here. Thank you guys all for joining. This is the Transportation Safety Conversations at the Hearth for June, which we are going to be doing on the roadway departures, proven safety countermeasures. My name is Grant Taylor. I am the Safety Program Manager here at the Eastgate Regional Council of Governments. First up, I want to apologize. I do not have a fireplace because Teams has updated and moved the option to change the background. So I have not figured that out and didn't know about it until just a few minutes ago. So I apologize for that. Start with this is a webinar format. It is a 30-minute presentation followed by open discussion. You guys feel free to ask any questions about any safety, whether it's about the topic that we talked about today or any other safety issues you have. Feel free to bring them up at any point in time. At the end, there'll be some time set aside for questions, but there's also the chat and there's a question and answer feature. We can ask questions in there as well. We'll either get to them as we go through it or at the end. So the meeting is being recorded. After the meeting is complete, it'll get put into a video, which will go out to send out to everybody that signed up, and they'll also get posted onto a YouTube playlist that we have through the Eastgate channel. We got a whole playlist going together for each video. It's being posted there in order that anybody can go and check it out and see them really easily. So that way, anybody that misses one, feel free to go and check out what was talked about. At the same time, so we've got different ways for being able to ask questions. If you are a type of person that doesn't feel comfortable asking a question in a public setting, feel free to reach out to me afterwards and call or email me. I'd be glad to talk about anything safety that comes up that you would like to know more about or find out more about. I want to do real quick going over some of the crash statistics so far for this year compared with last year. Last year in 2025, there were total crashes in Mahoning and Trumbull County of 9,854. In the first 5 months, so January up through the end of May, there were 3,999 last year. This year, up through the end of May, we're at 3,721. For fatal and serious injury crashes in all of 2025, there were 252. Through the end of May, there were 102. This year, we are sitting at 87 for the first fatal and serious crashes. And the last category here on fatal crashes had 37 in 2025. Up through the first 5 months of 2025 was 13. This year, we are sitting at 10 so far. So it is, at least we are showing at least some reductions. That says there is always the possibility of some of the data being delayed if they have to do extra investigations. So we may not have all the crashes, but generally at this point, we usually have a pretty good idea of where they're at. Also did put the total crashes and fatal and serious crashes on there for the chart going back for the last 10 years. Showing just how we've had some ups and downs over the years and showing where it's at up to this through the end of May right now for this year. One of the things I'd like to at least go over each time is one of the new things that's really being pushed by the FHWA, which is the safe system approach. Safe system approach is really putting onto these 5 different categories of safer vehicles, safer speeds, safer roads, post-crash care, and safer people. This is really going into there's more to roadway safety than just the roads themselves. And going in, the safer vehicles is a big aspect of it, looking at making sure the cars have the security or safety features in them that can help protect people in the event of an accident. Safer speeds is focusing a lot on the idea that there's going to be, the faster you're going is the higher the injury chances of a crash, as well as a higher chance of crash. Safer roads is still an important part of it, making sure that the roadways are safe, they following along with a lot of the recommended guidelines. Post-crash care is one of the newer things that sort of got tied into the safe system approach, which is the fact that even if a crash happens, it's being able to have a way of making sure that we're looking at it's not just up to the crash. You still need to make sure that people are being taken care of after the crash. So it's looking at response times, making sure that the uh, ambulances have the ability to carry what they need and that they have the proper responses. And also, I mean, some of the other stuff that can go into that is going into looking at quick clear of being able to make sure that roadways get cleared quickly to prevent secondary accidents, which can be a big issue. And safer people, which is making sure that people are also educated about how to drive, how to make sure that they're safe, how to be safe as a pedestrian or a driver or anybody else that's using our roadways. Big things that come out of this, looking at, death and serious injuries are unacceptable. We want to make sure that those are not happening at all. Uh, Humans will make mistakes. It's going to happen. Humans are vulnerable. Responsibility is shared. We need all these different aspects need to work together to help make sure that people are safe. Safety is proactive. It's not just a reactive thing. We need to be looking at what other areas can have issues or what else can come up. Um, and one of the really big things that comes out of this is redundancy is crucial. A lot of time it gets brought up as the idea of a Swiss cheese approach to looking at safety, which is that each of these different things has a lot of different ways to help make sure that people are safe, but they don't cover everything. And even if you have a safer speeds, you're going to have people that are going to exceed the speed limit. If you have a safer road, you're going to have people that are going to drive properly on the roadways. But when you work towards caving each one of these different approaches, that even those little holes that might be there, and you layer it all up, is it you can hopefully catch any issues through having these different redundancies that get tied into place to help keep people safe. So the goals of the series is I want to keep topics short and entertaining. The goal is not just to be speaking to you, but to be speaking with you. Um, I'm focusing on education topics of concern for members in the local community. If you have issues that you feel are topics you'd like to know more about, something can always be tied in for future webinars, bringing that stuff up, and I'd be glad to try to figure out how to help more and get a lot more of that information out. Um, Having the easy access to information, dialogue on the side of it, it's want to make sure this is very informal and have ability for you guys to ask questions at any point in time about anything you want to know more about. The biggest thing for me also is it's a connection. I'm wanting to develop connections with these people. I want to have everybody in these areas that have a concern about safety issues. I want them to know that who Eastgate is, that we are here and are able to help out with stuff. And we'd like to talk about this stuff. And we want to get to know more about all the different people involved in this stuff and what issues are important to them. And this is a good way to allow people to come here and bring their issues in while learning as well. Um, so with that, I want to get started into talking about what this month's topic is, which is focusing on proven safety countermeasures for roadway departures. Talked about proven safety countermeasures in the past. They are an absolutely wonderful tool that's put forward by the FHWA. They have a bunch of different areas that are ways that people have looked at for stuff that generally works in most situations. They're a lot of time they are lower cost solutions, but they're designed to be things that when you have safety issues that can generally just work for what's going on in that area. This one's going to be focusing on the roadway departure safety measures. The different ones we'll be talking about is going to be the enhanced delineation for horizontal curves, longitudinal rumble strips and stripes on two-lane roads, medium barriers, roadside improvements and curves, safety edge, and wider edge lines. So for the first one is the enhanced delineation for horizontal curves. This does cover a big wide area, so I apologize for the slides being a little bit more information heavy than normal. So when you look at the enhanced delineation for horizontal curves, it's making sure that anywhere that there's a bigger curve within the road, you're looking at how to make sure that people are aware of the curve and know where it's at, what's coming up, knowing the speeds that are appropriate for it. Within the looking at what some of the stuff they consider to be the proven safety countermeasures is adding in chevron signs. They found there's about 25% reduction in nighttime crashes when you have chevron signs. For anybody that doesn't know, chevron sign would be when you have like the arrows pointed, showing which way going into a curve or a turn. They've also found there's a 16% reduction in non-intersection fatal and injury crashes when having these in the curves. An additional 15% for when they are the oversized chevron signs. There's also sequential dynamic chevrons, which have had a really high reduction, 60% estimated for within the fatal injury crashes. The different chevron signs, a lot of time it comes in looking at what the speed limit is. It determines sort of what is recommended for how big of a sign should be put into place. Higher speeds, obviously, is where you start looking at wanting bigger ones. That way you're seeing them from further away. They're much more noticeable. But they are generally really good to have in curves. So another part of the enhanced delineation they consider are the in-curve warning pavement markings, which is looking at different warning signs that they put into pavement markings. So they've had about a 35 to 38% reduction in crashes. One of the bigger ones here is the fluorescent curve signs, upgrading existing signs to fluorescent sheeting, which is a way of helping to make sure that they're more visible, especially at night. But they've had also about an 18% reduction in non-intersection head-on run off the road and side swipes in rural areas. Next thing I hear is just a table that they have about what type of different enhanced delineations are good ideas, along with it should be in front of a curve or within the curves. The pavement markings, looking at, can be useful inside of a curve or before a curve or inside of it. The in-lane curve warning pavement markings are useful for being put up in advance of them. Retroflective side strips on signposts can be useful for in advance or within the curves. It's always a very, very good idea, especially for at nighttime. Delineators, which are little posts that can go alongside of a roadway, are useful within the curve to help make sure people can see the edge of the roadway, help keep people focused on staying within the road. The chevron signs within the curve are always a good thing. The enhanced conspicuity is the larger fluorescent, reflective, modifying a lot of these other situations to make them more visible, which is great for in advance or within the curve. The dynamic curve warning signings, or it's got the speed radar feedback signs. A lot of curves have a warning ahead about what the appropriate speed is for that curve, which is there's ways to determine with using ball banks that can determine what the safe speed is for these, but having along with a radar that's also telling people what their speed actually is can be very helpful. That's great for being in advance. And the sequential dynamic chevrons within the curve is a good thing. So this is all a lot more focused on just adding in those features alongside the roadway that help to make sure that people can see that there's a curve, know where the curve is, help to give that good warnings about that. Next one on here is the longitudinal rumble strips and stripes on two-lane roads. So longitudinal rumble strips, which is really hard to remember, keep those ones separate, strips and stripes. So strips are typically on the shoulder edge line near the center line. They're the rumble strips that are designed so that when a car goes over them, they make noise, they add a little bit of that vibration. They help with making sure that inattentive or tired drivers are awake, that they see that they're staying within their lanes. So the longitudinal rumble strips are the ones that go alongside the roadway, like in this picture here. The rumble stripes are where that they actually place the rumbles right within the line, so that they would be falling right along the edge line or right in the center line. So looking at some of the data they found, at least, has been center rumble strips have 44 to 64% reduction in head-on fatal and injury crashes on two-lane rural roads. Head-ons are always a very, very bad thing for when they're looking at higher severity crashes. It's always a very good thing to help reducing there. But also the shoulder rumble strips having that 13 to 51% reduction in the run off the road. especially on the two-lane rural roads. Um, there's one other thing which is one of the big issues that can come up with the rumble strips, of course, is going to be sound for in areas where that there's um, housing or pedestrian areas, places people live where it can make a lot of sound. They do have other ones called mumble strips, which are designed to be a much lower uh, volume, lower vibration to make a lot less noise for these areas, but at the same time, they have not been studied as much as the rumble strips. So the full reduction in severity or crashes isn't quite documented out very well yet. But in a situation where you might have want it to be in and people aren't going to be happy about the rumbles, it's a definite option that could still at least be used for in those areas. Um, some of the other stuff I at least know about these that can come up as issues is they have found that they don't really have any reductions for when there's snow and ice doesn't become an issue with these, that there's no reduction or no doesn't make any safety issues from having snow and ice over them. They've not found any issues there. So there's no concerns about that. Um, Next topic going on here is median barriers. So the median barriers are designed a lot of reducing crash severity. Examples are the cable barriers, the metal beam guardrails, and concrete barriers. Um, so 8% of fatalities on divided highways are due to head-on crashes. Um, Having a barrier that is in between travel lanes on these divided highways can help greatly with reducing that risk. Um, See the median barriers installed on the four-lane freeways has a 97% reduction in cross-median crashes, which is an absolutely huge number. So within these different types, they all have different situational uses that they can come up with. Um, so the cable barriers are excellent at deflection. Um, so a lot of what the point of having the median barriers is deflection. It's designed to redirect traffic cars back towards the roadway, or at least stop them from going further off the roadway or to the other side of the roadway. Cable barriers can have a lot better with the deflection. They're much better at having a little bit of that flexibility, which can help direct cars to sort of bounce back towards their lane of traffic. But at the same time, they're designed to be put more of a little bit further away from a roadway. When you go down the roads, you'll see along something like 680, they're out there very much at the middle of the roadway. They're not right up against it, they're out there at the middle. Um, so the next thing there is the metal beam guardrails. They don't have as much of the deflection ability of the cable barriers. Um, they do have a lot more, a little bit more stopping power to them, but they're usually designed to be a little bit further away from the roadway, a few feet away, not right up on the road, but not further away. So they're really designed for like a middle ground between where you're looking at having that deflection at. The other option is the concrete barriers, which do not have a great deflection, but they have a lot more stopping power. They are designed to be put right up against the roadway. They're designed so that you don't really have a lot of time to get away. It's immediately will deflect back. Um, the cable barriers and the metal beam guardrails are designed to, in the case of the cable barriers, if something happens to them, they're designed to be a lot more easier to replace and repair them. Metal beam guardrails typically in minor crashes will be okay, but if there's a bigger crash, they need to be um, repaired or replaced, especially because a lot of guardrails are designed with crumple zones so that uh, if they're hit at certain angles, that they will crumple in appropriate ways to help slow cars down or to redirect them back. So when they've been involved in a big enough crash, you need to look at getting them replaced so that they still have that ability. Whereas the concrete barriers at the same time is typically they just need to be pushed back into place if they're hit hard enough and won't need much of a maintenance after that. So the next thing is the roadside design improvements at curves. Um, some of this is going into what we just talked about before, with the reduced crash severity of having, cable barriers, the metal beam guardrails, and the concrete barriers being great for being able to reduce the crash severity in those locations of the curves, by helping with deflecting back towards the correct roadway. But also within these improvements is safe recovery, which typically is what you prefer having because you'd like to have people be able to recover rather than being redirected back. But a lot of the recovery comes down to having stuff like a clear zone, of having space along the side of the roadway where that if somebody does leave a roadway at the curb or something like that, or they drift off a little ways, that there's nothing in that area that's going to be an issue for them, that they will, nothing for them to hit in that area necessarily, but they will have time to get themselves back to the roadway. One of the other things that came up there is slope flattening, having big areas where that they can have a big drop. Um, if somebody does go off the side of the roadway in a curve, there's a big slope going down. It's going to redirect them further down the slope. It'll make it harder for them to stop, correct themselves. So having that flattened out slope is a very useful ability to have useful safety improvement to help people be able to get back onto the roadways. Also, those adding and widening shoulders is a big part of this. Also, if you have a wider shoulder, it's going to be typically you're going to have a paved shoulder where it goes outside there. Whereas in that case, if they do something like going over the rumble stripes, and then they have that room where they're still on the roadway but can correct back, gives a little bit just of a cushion before getting into other issues that can come up for anybody that does get a little bit of edges there. Some of the different stats have come out for looking at some of this type of stuff. So increasing distance roadside features from the 3.3 to 16.7 feet has a 22% reduction in all crashes. Bumping that all the way out to 30 feet is up to a 44% reduction in crashes. So seeing there is the bigger distance gives a lot more time for people to not have as serious of a crashes. Bob, it also comes down to is, in the case of a crash, if there is 30 feet of distance and they go off the roadway, there's a better chance that they'll be able to stop before they have a potentially higher severity crash by hitting something. Also, though, one of the big things also come out of something like clearing out the roadside features actually is stuff like snow removal is a big thing that can come up there, where that if you do have a bigger gap between any roadside features and your actual roadways, it allows more sunlight to actually hit the roads and can help warm them up and have a greater result when it comes to snow removal, because for that reason, it's supposed to be having more sunlight hitting it. And um, some one of the other things here about like flattening the side slope, going from a 1 to 3 to a 1 to 4 on the vertical to height is a 8% reduction in single vehicle crashes. Going further from a 1 to 4 to 1 to 6 is a 12% reduction in vehicle crashes. So it's just making that slope a lot more shallower, lower impact slope can greatly help with those situations of not allowing people to be able to correct better in situations. One of the other ones that does come up is safety edge. This is goes a lot into the idea of along with the side slope of allowing corrections. So the safety edge is designed to help cars re-enter the roadway. It also can help a lot with head-on crashes. What this does is it creates a estimated to be a 26 to 40% slope. 30-degree angle is the guide that they try to aim for where it should be at. And essentially it comes down to is that when you're repaving a road or doing initial paving, you can have a device attached to the screed of the end gate where it's on the paver that goes out, and it shapes it down to this 30-degree angle that goes along the edge of the roadway. And what that does is it makes it so it is a solid paved environment that can be underneath the graded shoulder or exposed, where that in the instance where somebody does go off the road, it can make it so that they have a easier way of getting back onto the roadway when they try to steer back on. One of the things why it says it's helpful for being able to help against head-on crashes is because one of the things that can come up when somebody does go off the side of the road a little bit is overcorrecting, where they try to turn back into the roadway, but there's a small lip or a bump, or they're in a little bit of a ditch that can come up that it doesn't want to go back over, and then they push a little bit harder to try and make sure they get up over that edge, and it overcorrects them, and then they potentially go into the other lane from have a risk of a head-on crash. So the safety edge is designed so that they will be able to just turn and go right up it and get back onto the roadway without having that risk of an overcorrect or bouncing back off further off the side of the road. It does have to be installed when repaving, because it does get put in as part of the pavement to make sure it's more secure and connected to the actual pavement itself. There is, they found that it's got an 11% reduction in fatal and injury crashes, 21% reduction in run off the road crashes, which is a really good number for reducing those crashes. But also the 19% reduction in head-on crashes because of that, reducing that risk of people overcorrecting themselves back into the other lane. The last one of the proven safety countermeasures here I want to talk about is one of the lowest cost ones, I believe, which is wider edge lines. When doing an edge lines, normal edge line width is 4 inches. Edge lines can typically go up to 6 inches, so it's the idea of just taking your edge lines all the way up to 6 inches. The good thing is it's relatively low cost. It can be done with equipment that most communities are already using for their pay or for their striping. And the other things that come up that's going to be a potentially bigger feature in the future is you've got a lot more automated vehicles or lane assist type setting type stuff that cars are starting to have as extra safety features, or that having those extra wide lane markings will probably make it a lot easier for those automobiles to be able to see them and help them stay within their lanes as well. So they got the wider edge lines they found from reducing about 37% for the non-intersection fatal and injury crashes on the rural 2-lane roads, and having a 22% reduction in fatal injury crashes for rural freeways. So having those edge lines can be really helpful though for making sure that people can see it. They're great also for being able to look at for the systemic type stuff where you're looking at big areas that you can go through and add these in, and places you've got concerns about where you want to make sure that people are seeing them. So those are all of the urban safety countermeasures for the roadway departures that the FHWA has. One thing I wanted to bring up again, which was talked about last year, or not last year, last month, is the systemic safety for roadway departures that ODOT has as one of their programs where they're looking for ways of doing these widespread looks at roadway departures. These type of proven safety countermeasures are perfect type of things to being able to look into of ways to look at areas of concern. Their map, you can see a little bit there showing off some of the places that they've been put into their critical categories or higher risk categories that they've got a lot more concern about. That could be taken of looking into being able to do a bunch of the stuff across a bigger, wider area. That covers all the proven safety countermeasure stuff at this point in time. Does anybody have any questions or anything they'd like to talk about with the safety stuff? And like I said, people can always send me an email, give me a phone call, or right there. This information will be going out. And probably getting some other links together to send out as well. So I didn't have any questions came in beforehand this time, so if anybody, if there's no questions or any information, just feel free to head on out. I'll stay on for a little bit just in case anything comes up with anybody, and I appreciate everybody getting on and look forward to seeing everybody for next month. Thank you.